Justice for Derrick Williams, next on Black Nouveau. Good evening and welcome to this edition of Black Nouveau. I'm Joanne Williams. This week we'll meet the newest inductees in the Negro League's Wall of Fame. We'll continue our discussion with MPS Superintendent Dr. Gregory Thornton and hear from some of the young campers at TJ Camp Peace. But we begin with the Derrick Williams story. In July of 2011, Derrick Williams died in police custody. The footage you see here is Williams in the back of a police car complaining that he didn't feel well. He died shortly after that. The initial ruling of a natural death was changed a few weeks ago to homicide. We're joined now by James Hall Jr., president of Milwaukee's NAACP, and Eugene Kane, columnist at the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. Welcome, both of you.
Thank you.
The subject that we want to discuss is a very tough one, and it's Derrick Williams and that particular case. Let me start, Gene, with you. You wrote about it in your column, and you said, we've seen this happen before, and had there been videotape 20 years ago, the outcome of the Ernie Lacy case might have been different.
Well, the Ernie Lacy case and numerous other cases, you could go back as far as Daniel Bell, because what I was centering on was how peculiar it was that it was a year-old videotape that basically sparked all this. And the visceral impact of people seeing him die on camera clearly is a part of this. It kind of harkens back to the Rodney King beating, where one of the reasons that became so powerful for people because you could actually see it happening. So that was my take on this. And Ernest Lacy and Derrick Williams are different cases, but in many ways, they're very much the same.
As NAACP president, do you look at this particular case like so many others? Is this a surprise to you, or is this something new?
Well, unfortunately, it's not a surprise because, as Eugene just said, and as most people know, there have been any number of incidents and allegations of incidents occurring pretty regularly with the Milwaukee Police Department. We've had the recent body cavity searches, other incidents. So, no, it wasn't a surprise. But what makes it different, again, as Eugene indicated, was that in this case, there was the video where people could see with their own eyes the degree of neglect or indifference that, occurred here. Plus, quite frankly, having seen that in terms of the video and what occurred, the degree of suffering and with this young man pleading for that he couldn't breathe, then having the investigations occur in a way such that the authorities in looking at the matter just very easily found nothing wrong and nothing awry. And here I mean the medical examiner, police internal affairs, and the DA. So those factors, are different.
You've had conversations before this incident with the police chief and with the district attorney and other people who are decision makers in Milwaukee and Milwaukee County. When this occurred, did you go to them and say, what has happened, and can you give me some sort of explanation, or did you wait for them to come to you?
Well, in the immediate aftermath of this, well, first, going back, as you say, at NAACP, as well as any number of other organizations, we had established an ongoing line of communication or contact with the DA, with the U.S. Attorney, with the chief, and with other officials. We have been saying for some time that dignity and respect and sensitivity, shall we say, creating and operating with a culture of sensitivity with regard to the community is something that was very much in need here. So, we and others have been stating that and making that case for some time. So when this occurred, it wasn't a total surprise because there has been a feeling that there's been a lack of that generally, and that's something we've been pushing for. Similarly, we've been pushing for a pattern and practice investigation into some of the other incidents.
Now that's what has happened and what may happen on the part of the authorities. Eugene, you hear from the voice of the people, from all different sides. What did you hear from people? What did people email you, call you, ask you about? And what did you think when they brought questions to you about it?
Well, first of all, the video itself is very disturbing. I mean, it's impossible to watch that as a human being and not feel the compassion, because clearly the officers involved, not indictment of all Milwaukee police officers, but the officers involved did show an almost callous disregard for his life. I've always maintained police officers have this awesome power to arrest and detain people. Nobody else in society has that power. So you have to hold them accountable for incidents such as this. And again, the powerful impact of the video, I think it really has sparked a passion among people who will doubtlessly be watching this and perhaps protesting this, because I've often told people, particularly for black parents, they see him in the back of that car, and regardless of what his own actions did to bring that upon himself getting arrested, he was helpless. He could have been anyone's son. He could have been any black parent's son. And that is why people, I think, have a right to wonder what is the training and the response of Milwaukee police officers when they come upon someone in such obvious crisis. They failed to test this time.
And have you heard from other people who have expressed their views to you? Because you get responses from a wide...
Oh, people who think he deserved it?
Well, no, a wide variety of people will respond to what you say in your column. Have you heard from them?
Well, yes, I think there's always a large number of people, black or white, who can see that as being, whoa, that was terrible. Why did they why did they tell him, oh, I think you're just joking, or I think you're just playing around? So a lot of people have empathy, but at the same time, there are people who immediately see it in terms of, well, he might have deserved what he got. And that's very disheartening, but it's out there, and there are major media figures in this town who contributed to that. So doesn't surprise me, though. I've been around in Milwaukee for a long time.
And you've heard this kind of talk before?
Yeah.
Have you heard this kind of talk before, very briefly? Yes,
I have, and I think it's not surprising, and I think the issue is it's part of the bigger issue of needing to address poverty, hypersegregation, joblessness, all of those other factors that create a culture of separation in this community.
Things we have to talk about once again, and hopefully you'll come back and talk with us again about all those other issues which are important to Milwaukee. Police Chief Ed Flynn has accepted our invitation to join us here on Black Nouveau, and you will see that interview in just a few weeks. Earlier this year, the Milwaukee Brewers and yesterday's Negro League welcomed 2 new members into the Negro League's Wall of Fame. At 90 years young, Porter Reed is still an ambassador for baseball. He shares his memories with young and old alike. And almost 60 years ago, Mamie "Peanut" Johnson was among a handful of women to play in the Negro Leagues. Warren Anderson talked with the pitching pioneer, who also is the first female inductee.
You'd think that being the first female Negro League player would be a challenge, but according to Mamie Johnson, it wasn't.
That wasn't a challenge to me. No, because I started playing ball with the fellas ever since I was a child. I'd say 7, 8 years old. And that's when we were making our own baseballs in the country in South Carolina, where I come from. And that's how I learned to play, you know. And then I went to New Jersey after my grandmother died. I was fortunate enough to play with the PAL club in Jersey. And then my mother bought a home in D.C. That's where I live now. And then I started playing ball with what we call the Sunday League with the fellas, you know. And I was at the right place at the right time.
I asked Mamie what advice she would give to the youth of today.
First of all, make sure that you want to do it. Because if you don't want to do it, you're not going to be good at it. That's the first thing. And if you do find that you like what you're doing, do it well. Don't go out there and act foolish, you know. It's just not there. Don't make yourself look like a fool. I put it that way. I mean, if you want to do it, do it. and put everything that you have into it, you know, and be the best. That's my thing. I want to be the best at anything I do, you know. And I don't want nobody to say, well, hell, she tried, but she, you know, I don't want that. I want people to say, hey, she did it. So that's my thing.
The sports have been real good to me. And baseball is all, that's all I do now is watch a baseball game, and I know all the Negro League players in the past. And then my hometown is 20, in the little hometown where I live, is 20 Negroes, African-American players that win in the Negro League. And that's the record, the world record, just 20 out of one town went there. We have 4 for Chicago American Giants, 4 for Birmingham Black Barons, and 2 for Memphis Red Sox and everything. And just, you know, just been, and it's the greatest ball player ever lived in my hometown was named Lafayette Dumas. He died when he was 23, but he was in the same class with Satchel Paige. I played with Satchel Paige, and I played against all Satchel Paige, Buck O'Neill. I played against all those players when I was with the Houston Eagles. And baseball has been my life, and I still love it.
I asked Porter Reed what he thought about the future of baseball for young African Americans.
I've been to Houston to speak to the young black African American that's dropping out of baseball, playing football and basketball. But they just dropping out, and the Cubans, the Puerto Ricans, and the Mexicans that's all just taking over baseball. And I've been going around to try to encourage the young blacks to get back in baseball. We dominated baseball in the 30s and the 40s, the blacks did, but after Jackson Robinson got up there, you know, he played with UCLA, and he played with the whites, and Branch Rickey got him. He wasn't the best ball player when he chose him, but he had played with the white boys and everything. He got him and put him in there, and he turned out to be the best baseball, but a lot of players better than he was at that time.
In honor of the tribute, both teams wore their throwback uniforms. Mamie and Porter both got to throw out ceremonial first pitch. Mamie even had the additional honor of meeting her favorite brewer, Niger Morgan.
Last week, we introduced you to TJ Camp Peace, a fatherhood initiative designed to strengthen the bonds between fathers and sons. Liddy Collins continues the story.
Let me have a 4. Let me have 2 4.
This is day 2 of TJ Camp Peace, held on the banks of the Mississippi River in Black Hawk Park. This camp started back in 1995 to strengthen the bond between men and boys.
What do you have here?
This is really a violence prevention exercise. You know, a lot of the trouble in the community back home, especially as it relates to guns, is often a part of the affairs of boys and men. So we decided to bring boys and men here to bond, to work together, to play together, and to sow the seeds of peace.
The camp's cook, Marvin Jones, has been with the camp since inception. He stayed with it because of his love for community, children, and to be an example to the boys.
You know, you never know how you connect with someone or who you connect with, because sometimes they just kind of sit there and give you that look. But it's been our experience that through the years, as they grow into young men, they come back and assist and help us and just in every phase of what we're doing here.
Young adult Gregory Davis, who now mentors, values the time he spent at Camp Peace as a youth.
Coming from Milwaukee, you know, a place where, you know, there may not be that father figure or that, you know, group of men that can help you develop, it was really important to get out here and be with nature and, you know, interact with young men and, you know, older men as well, and, you know, feel that bond.
I heard about it, and I heard that it was a traditional thing that they do, so I wanted to make sure me and my son be participating in this.
It was fun when we came here. Last night was fun. We had s'mores.
I don't fish. I don't know how to fish. My sons don't know how to fish. We learned that today by someone else teaching us how to fish, and, you know, my son's never done this kind of thing. So this is something just, it all goes back to memory. So when they get older, they can think back, say, this is what I did with my father and other fathers.
The executive director, Ron Johnson, had 3 generations represented at the camp.
Little Ron, did you score? My son and grandson are here. Ron Johnson, and Ron Johnson. That's a good point, assistant.
And the new rule after 17 years.
Remember when I was telling you about doing 50 push-ups a day? See, when you do push-ups, it helps your body, it helps build body strength so you'll be a better football player. There are a number of campers here that there are at least 2 generations.
See how you just took the ball out your hands?
Skinny as a stick of macaroni.
Andre McKee and his sons are on their 4th year at camp.
It's a good time for the boys. It's a nice, peaceful time. It gives everybody the opportunity to kind of reconnect with nature, but also do some male bonding that you can't necessarily do in the city because you got everything else pulling or pressing for your time. You can just come here and just be men and boys outside playing in the yard.
There goes my baby.
Andrew McKee and fellow campers connected with their music while connecting with nature.
Good it feels to call you my girl. There goes my baby. That girl acts like she doesn't know me. But when I look into those eyes and all I can find is loneliness, I picture us together on a boat. Like I was Romeo and you were Juliet. You're like my flower that was surrounded by wires to protect.
I've been blessed with the opportunity to be a part of GYLI's AYLP, which is the American Youth Leadership Program, and GYLI stands for Global Youth Leadership Institute, and it is funded by the state. And we just went out to Central America, Costa Rica and Panama in particular for the last month. And when we were over there, we learned about eco-sustainability and multicultural identity and world food systems.
Camp has taught Alexander McKee to take things slow and appreciate.
Spending time with my dad, just secluded away from the city, just me, my dad, and my brothers, and just being able to, associate with everybody and talk and just tell stories about, past, present, things that have happened to us, past years, and just socializing, not worrying about anything, because when you're out here, it's just you and nature and your friends.
I like the peacefulness, the serenity, but also the ability to help mentor, but also to get other feedback from other adult men and reinforcement, because the one thing that we have to learn collectively, we can do better for these youth as a group than we can as individual men. Because a lot of times I can tell my son something and they don't take it for what it is until maybe they experience it or they have another mentor make that same suggestion. So then it's like, well, maybe my father isn't from Mars.
So fathers bring their kids. I get kids from schools, get kids from churches, community-based organizations. In fact, we do very little recruiting. They find us.
Ron Johnson said TJ Camp Peace has been a labor of love for 17 years.
Milwaukee's black community and communities all over the country is in trouble with the murder rate and the joblessness and sometimes hopelessness. So this is 3 days that we're away from all of that.
It's serene. Everything's so beautiful and right by the Mississippi River and just all the trees.
Welcome back, Dr. Thornton, Dr. Gregory Thornton, who's the superintendent of the Milwaukee Public Schools. Welcome to Black Nouveau again.
It's good to be back.
Let's talk a little bit about charter schools.
Right.
There are more of them opening up. What's the value of a charter school and why does MPS encourage them?
Well, MPS is en route to trying to create options for young people throughout the city. We see charters as a viable alternative to doing that. We have 3 strategies around charters as well as enrollment, market share growth. We're looking for great programs that we can replicate, programs that are already in place that we know we have a good track record, like our Montessori programs, and we actually opened up Howard Street and we expanded a Montessori high school option this year. We're looking for things that are innovative. I mean, we want to prepare our young people for the next 50 years, and things are changing so quick, so we got to be on the cutting edge. So we're looking to bring charter schools that can allow us to actually grow and programs to grow to meet our children's needs in this digital society that we live in. And certainly the last is around turnaround options, and there's some schools that we've been challenged with. I'm really pleased overall with the growth of the majority of our schools, but there are a few that we just need to have some additional support, and we see charters as a potential model to doing that, going in and doing some turnaround work that we think is very needed. For me, it's not acceptable unless all our schools are doing well. And we think this charter strategy is one that certainly brings us market share, but more than anything, it brings families options, and that's what families want. They go shopping for schools just like they go shopping for large appliances or clothing. And we want to have the options in MPS that they find are worthwhile and certainly will fulfill their family and children's needs. Whether it's charter, whether it's MPS, no matter what the school, money is always a very big issue. How are things going to be paid for? It always comes back to money. It always comes back to money, and I know Milwaukee did not make the race to the top money the first time around. Or how about getting some of those federal funds? Are we going to get them? I think we've been really successful. I look at our grant portfolio over the last couple of years, and it's grown 50%. You're right, we did not get the race to the top the first time. It was done by the state level, and the State Department actually had the opportunity to submit. We didn't as a school district. That opportunity has just opened for us again. And I'm pleased to say, as we speak now, I have a group of folks back at the ranch, back at the school board, actually cranking out and being prepared to submit what I think is a dynamic submission around personalized learning. We think we're positioned well based on a lot of the things we've done. So I think that innovation could be closer than we think. So we have our fingers crossed. What about other finances for the schools? What about, how are you saving money? Because you have to save money with MPS because there's so many challenges. What are you doing? The board's been courageous, and they've taken on some tough issues. The big issue is the OPEB, other post-employment benefits. And I sit here today saying that our actuarial was in a couple of weeks ago, and I'm pleased to say that we reduced that outstanding liability $1.4 billion, with a B, $billion. We were facing a $2.8 billion legacy cost. And based on some structural changes that we've made and some experience tables, we think the work that we've done will certainly be able to make MPS a sustainable financial entity for years to come. Now, when you say legacy costs, what does that mean? Are those pensions? Those are costs that are associated with folks after they leave the system. Many folks are certainly supported with health care once they leave, retirement opportunities once they leave, and those kinds of things continue to grow. And the good news and the bad news is the good news. It's just good. It's all good. There are people that are living longer. And as a result, those costs continue to grow. We had to do something to contain them. The board was very direct, wanted to get their arms around those costs so they can begin to drop money into the schools. Going back to what we talked about last week, we want art, we want music, we want physical education, we want technology, we want cybraries in all our schools. And so I think they were very courageous, and big changes that reduced, gave us a $1.4 billion reduction. Now, what impact is this going to be for the taxpayer? Are we going to see a raise in our taxes for schools? I think you're going to see stability in taxes. I mean, that's the good news. I mean, what was happening, our legacy cost was just actually draining us as we move forward. We were paying as we went along, and those costs continued to escalate. Who would have thought that here in 2012 that we would have increases from 7 to 8% in healthcare? We're now able to be positioned to, I think, continue down being good stewards of dollars, and then allowing us an opportunity to do some strategic planning to even mitigate the $1.4 billion that's left. So we feel good about that. We feel really good. And as we look to next year, based on some of the structural changes we made after Act 10 and participation of our partners, and certainly our unions have been great partners in this, we think we go into fiscal year 2014 in pretty good shape, being able to, I think, to raise the standard of care for our young people, to begin to provide more additional supports that are so desperately needed in a community like ours. Now, is your contract with the Milwaukee Teachers Education Association, is that up in 2014? The contract is up June 2013. Okay. We actually negotiated a contract in September September 2010, which expires. And we'll be certainly having conversations as we move forward.
Now, what impact did Act 10 have on that contract, or might it have?
Well, Act 10 is pretty significant, to be very candid. I mean, a lot of the savings were generated due to the fact that we were positioned to look at retirement in a different way, look at our benefit structure, look at our third-party provider. And Act 10 has been significant. But significantly, I think, positioned the standard of care of life for young people in a very positive way.
What if it's rolled back?
Whoa, if it's rolled back, I think we got to go back to the drawing board. I'm pleased to say that the work that we've done with our unions have been very proactive, and pleased to say we were able to get to a contract prior to Act 10 being enacted. But Act 10 being repealed would certainly challenge the $1.4 billion savings I talked about. It will challenge the fact that this year I didn't lay off a teacher. I mean, we're going back into the layoffs because fiscally we do not have enough resources to support with the present revenue streams that are in place. Act 10 allowed that opportunity to take place.
Well, I'm going to invite you back in a couple of months so we can see how things are going with MPS, and I hope you will come back and join us.
You know, I always enjoy coming back talking with you.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Dr. Gregory Thornton, the Superintendent of the Milwaukee Public Schools. Thanks for being with us.
Good seeing you.
And that's our program for this week. For Black Nouveau, I'm Joanne Williams. Thanks for watching, and good night.